The first light of dawn crept slowly across the eastern horizon, touching the surface of the Nile with soft shades of gold and copper. The river moved calmly, as it had for thousands of years, carrying life, trade, and memory through the heart of Egypt. Birds called from the papyrus reeds, and the distant silhouettes of feluccas rested silently on the water, waiting for the day to begin. In a small clay brick house not far from the temple of Sekhmet, Nebamun awoke. He rose before the city, before the market sellers, before the stone cutters and scribes. He rose before necessity demanded it, because waking early was no longer a decision, it was a habit. For more than 20 years his body had learned the rhythm of the sun. Long before his eyes opened, his mind was already alert. This was not the alertness of anxiety or fear, but the calm awareness that comes from repetition. His breathing was slow, his movements deliberate. Nebamun stepped onto the cool earthen floor and wrapped a simple linen garment around himself. He did not rush. He never rushed. He believed haste was the enemy of clarity, and clarity was the foundation of healing. Outside his home, the air smelled of wet earth and river plants. He knelt beside a clay basin filled with Nile water and began washing his hands, slowly, carefully, rubbing each finger, each palm, to a pasabi. It might have looked like a ritual. To Nebamun, it was discipline. He whispered a short prayer to Sekhmet, not because he believed the words themselves healed the sick, but because the prayer marked a transition, from sleep to purpose, from personal thought to professional duty. The mind, he believed, needed signals just as the body did. When his hands were clean, he sat cross-legged on a woven reed mat and reached for his most valuable possession, a rolled medical papyrus, its edges worn from decades of use. The scroll contained knowledge gathered across generations, descriptions of wounds, fevers, broken bones, parasites, burns, and remedies made from honey, herbs, milk, copper salts, and crushed minerals. Some sections blended observation with spiritual incantations. Others were remarkably precise, born of experience rather than superstition. Nebamun unrolled the papyrus slowly. Each morning he studied only a small portion, never more, never less. This, too, was habit. He believed learning should be steady, not overwhelming. Many young healers tried to master everything at once, and ended up mastering nothing. Nebamun had learned long ago that knowledge, like the Nile, must be absorbed gradually. Today's passage concerned blade wounds, injuries common among soldiers, builders, and farmers. Copper blades could cut cleanly, but infection often followed. The papyrus reedy. If you examine a man with a deep cut, and the flesh is open but not swollen, you shall say, "This is an injury I will treat. Clean the wound, observe the heat, apply honey and bind with clean linen." Nebamun paused. He had read these words hundreds of times. Yet each morning he read them again, because repetition deepened understanding, because habit sharpened instinct. As he studied, footsteps approached. Outside, a young apprentice shifted impatiently from foot to foot. Kitty, no more than 16, had joined Nebamun a year earlier. He was bright, eager, and restless, the way all young minds were. Finally, Kitty spoke. "Master, the people are already gathering." Nebamun rolled the papyrus carefully and stood. "Good," he said calmly. "Illness does not wait." They stepped into the awakening city. The streets of Thebes slowly filled with life. Bakers removed fresh bread from clay ovens. Donkeys brayed as traders prepared for the market. Stone workers walked toward construction sites, their shoulders already sore from yesterday's labor. Near the temple, Nebamun's clinic consisted of a shaded courtyard, a low wooden table, baskets of herbs, linen bandages, and jars of ointments. Nothing luxurious. Nothing excessive. Patients were already waiting. A farmer limped forward first, his leg wrapped in filthy cloth, soaked with blood and mud. The cut was jagged, likely caused by a sickle. Keti leaned closer, excitement and nervousness mixing in his voice. "Shall I prepare the chant, master?" Nebaman gently raised a hand. "First," he said, "we look." He carefully unwrapped the cloth. The wound was deep but clean enough to treat. Nebaman leaned in, observing colour swelling and warmth. "Second," he continued, "we clean." He poured water over the wound, ignoring the farmer's hiss of pain. Then he applied honey mixed with crushed herbs. Keti watched closely. "Why not begin with the spell?" he asked. Nebaman glanced at him. "Because words do not replace action. Habit teaches us what works." He bound the wound with clean linen and instructed the farmer on rest and care. The farmer bowed deeply. "You have saved my leg." Nebaman only nodded. Praise was not part of the process. Patient after patient came forward. A child with fever, a mason with crushed fingers, a woman suffering stomach pain. Each time, Nebaman followed the same pattern. Observe, clean, treat. No matter who the patient was, poor labour or temple servant, the process remained unchanged. This consistency built trust. The people knew what to expect. More importantly, Nebaman knew what to do without hesitation. As the sun climbed higher, Keti grew tired. Sweat dripped down his back, and his hands trembled slightly as he prepared bandages. "How do you never forget a step?" Keti asked during a brief pause. Nebaman looked out over the courtyard, where patients waited quietly. "I forget often," he said. "That is why I rely on habit." He continued, "When the mind is tired, habit carries the burden. When fear appears, habit steadies the hands." A sudden commotion broke the calm. Two men carried a construction worker whose arm hung at an unnatural angle. A stone block had slipped. Katie's eyes widened. "Master, this is serious." Nebaman felt the weight of responsibility, but not panic. He examined the arm carefully, testing movement, checking swelling. "This is a break," he said calmly. "Not life-threatening, but painful." He prepared splints, aligning the bone with practiced precision. Keti noticed something important. Nebaman did not hesitate. He did not debate. His body moved almost on its own. Years of repetition had transformed knowledge into instinct. As the arm was secured, the injured man sighed in relief. "Thank you," he whispered. Nebaman wiped his hands and took a slow breath. By midday, the crowd thinned. The heat grew heavy, and cicadas buzzed loudly. Keti sat down, exhausted. "Master," he said quietly, "why do you still study every morning? You could already heal without the papyrus." Nebaman looked at the scroll resting beside him. "Because skill fades without practice," he said, "and pride grows when learning stops." He placed a hand on Keti's shoulder. "The greatest danger to a healer is not ignorance," he said. "It is forgetting that mastery is built one habit at a time." As shadows shortened and the city moved toward afternoon, Keti realized something profound. Nebaman was not great because he knew more spells or secrets. He was great because he did the same small things correctly every day, and in that quiet consistency, lives were saved. As the sun began its slow descent behind the western hills, Thebes changed its rhythm. The heat of the day loosened its grip, and shadows stretched long across stone walls and temple courtyards. Smoke rose gently from cooking fires, carrying the scent of bread, lentils, and roasted onions into the evening air. Nebaman cleaned his tools in silence. Each knife, each bronze probe, each wooden splint was washed, dried, and returned to its place. This, too, was habit, one formed long before Keti had ever entered his life. A careless doctor, Nebaman believed, was more dangerous than an ignorant one. Keti watched from the side, his body heavy with fatigue, but his mind restless. "Master," he said, breaking the quiet, "most doctors leave their tools for servants. Why do you always clean them yourself?" Nebaman did not look up. "Because responsibility," he said calmly, "is also a habit." The sky darkened to deep blue. Stars began to appear one by one, steady and patient. Neberman was just preparing to close the clinic when hurried footsteps echoed down the street. 2 soldiers burst into the courtyard, torches in hand. "Doctor!" One of them shouted, "You are needed immediately." Between them, they carried a man dressed in fine linen, stained dark with blood. His breathing was shallow, his face pale. Gold rings glinted on his fingers. A nobleman, Ketty's heart began to race. Neberman's did not. "Lay him here," Neberman said evenly. The soldiers obeyed. The captain leaned forward. His chariot overturned outside the city walls. Other doctors refused. They said the injury was too severe. Neberman examined the man carefully. A deep wound cut across his side, torn flesh revealing muscle beneath. Blood had slowed, but infection was a grave risk. Neberman closed his eyes for a brief moment. Not in prayer, in focus. He had seen wounds like this before. Rare, dangerous, unforgiving. Many healers relied on inspiration in moments like this. Neberman relied on routine. "Water," he said. Ketty rushed to obey. Neberman cleaned the wound slowly, methodically. He ignored the murmurs of the soldiers, ignored the weight of the nobleman's status, ignored the promise of reward that hovered unspoken in the air. To Neberman, this was not a noble. This was a body, and bodies followed patterns. "Observe the heat," he murmured, echoing the words of the papyrus. He pressed gently, watching the man's reaction. "Master." Ketty whispered, "Should we use a spell?" "In time," Neberman replied. "First, discipline." He applied honey mixed with crushed herbs known to slow decay. He stitched the wound carefully, hands steady despite the poor light. Hours passed. The torches burned low. Sweat beaded on Neberman's brow, but his movements never faltered. Ketty noticed something extraordinary. Neberman did not rush, not even now, not even when failure could mean death. Finally, the nobleman's breathing steadied. Colour returned faintly to his face. The danger had passed. For now, the captain exhaled sharply. "You have done the impossible." He reached into a leather pouch and placed it heavily on the table. Gold coins spilled slightly onto the wood. "Take it," he said. "And more, if you wish. Name your price." Kitty stared. Neberman looked at the gold, but only briefly. Then he pushed the pouch back. "I will accept what is customary," he said quietly. "No more." The captain frowned. "Do you know who this man is?" Neberman nodded. "I know who he is wounded." The soldiers exchanged glances. Kitty was confused. When they were alone again, he finally spoke. "Master," he said carefully, "that gold could change everything. We could live like nobles, never worry again." Neberman washed his hands slowly before answering. "Every habit," he said, "is a vote for the person you become." Ketty frowned. "I don't understand." Neberman sat beside him, exhaustion finally showing in his posture. "When I was young," he began, "I believed success was a single moment, a great healing, a famous patient, a reward." He looked at his hands. "But success is quieter than that." He continued, "If I accept excess today, it becomes easier tomorrow. Soon I will choose patience by profit, not need. My hands will still heal, but my character will decay." Ketty listened, silent. "Character," Neberman said, "is simply habit practiced inside the soul." They walked home beneath a sky filled with stars. The Nile reflected the moonlight, calm and eternal. At his home, Neberman did something that surprised Kitty. He unrolled his medical papyrus. "Master," Ketty said gently, "you saved a life tonight. Should you not rest?" Neberman smiled faintly. "Rest comes later," he said. "Reflection comes now." He studied by lamplight, reviewing notes on internal injuries, making small marks in the margin. Even after success, even after exhaustion, he studied. Because the day he stopped was the day he would begin to decline. Ketty watched, understanding at last. Greatness was not dramatic. It was disciplined. Final moral, in ancient Egypt, as in the modern world, habits shape destiny. Neberman did not become a great doctor because of talent alone. He became great because he practiced learning daily. He followed process over impulse. He chose integrity repeatedly. Skill is built in routine. Courage is built in repetition. Character is built when no one is watching.